Well, the whole world has been distracted, that's an understatement, by the pandemic, pandemonium, and panic. A lot of other things have been pushed aside or delayed, including the Conservative Party of Canada's leadership race to find a successor for Andrew Scheer, who, by the way, continues to stay on at Stornoway and continues to take the leader of the opposition's salary. I suppose someone has to. If it weren't him, it would fall to someone else. But in this strange interregnum, we don't know exactly when the Conservative Party will choose its new leader. The party elders have decided to put on a sideshow. And we've talked about this before. As you know, we've interviewed a number of the leadership candidates. I have myself, so has Cian Bexty. Oddly enough, Erin O'Toole and Peter MacKay have not kept their promise to meet with us. I'm sure that'll change. But one fellow we've talked to a couple times is Jim Karahalios. He's known as a carbon tax crusader. That's how I first came to know him, and the Ontario provincial scene. His wife, in fact, is an MPP under Ontario Premier Doug Ford. And Jim, he's always been a bit of a conservative gadfly, but in a good way. I mean, maybe it's because it takes one to know one, and we're troublemakers here too. So when Karahalios threw his hat into the ring, I was happy to interview him, and I did. To my, I'm not going to say my shock, but to my disappointment, despite the fact that Karahalios received the thousands of signatures from party members necessary and raised the $300,000 necessary to pay the entry fee, he was kicked out of the race for being mean to another candidate, Erin O'Toole. And whether or not it was true that he was mean, how on earth is that cause to kick him out? Isn't that cause for Erin O'Toole to fight back? Isn't that cause for party members to choose whether or not to vote for Karahalios? Well, the party kicked him out, and he sued. The party went to court to have his lawsuit thrown out, and Jim Karahalios won. And Jim joins us now via Skype. Jim, I have to tell you, we're talking so much. We're not talking about policy issues. We're not talking about beating Justin Trudeau. We're talking about this bizarre internal warfare that the lame duck rump of the Conservative Party bureaucracy has declared on you. I have to tell you, I'm not interested in this subject by choice. I'm interested in it only because these fools have decided to make this their news story of the summer, their vendetta against you. I have not endorsed you. I like the cut of your jib, to be honest. But whether or not you should be the Tory leader, to me, falls to party members, not to some cabal who wanted to disqualify you. I'm angry.
Well, a lot of people are angry, Ezra. And, you know, it does impact policy because it's pretty clear that if you're a conservative and you want to run in the Conservative Party, you can do so unless you want to win. And that's not allowed if you're a conservative and you're trying to win. And when I campaign, you know, I campaign kind of like a Brahma bull. I try to win. And when they come up with arguments and they want to be hard on other candidates, the establishment red Tories, that's supposed to be acceptable. But when they get it back, they don't seem to like it. And they call it mean, they call it nasty. The communication that this entire fiasco is centered around was actually quite benign. I just quoted Erin O'Toole's campaign chair from an article in the Globe and Mail. I took his words. I didn't make up the words. And they kind of blew a gasket over it. And it was very disappointing, I think, to see, you know, it's one thing if you disqualify someone at the start of a race. And that's, you know, I think you'd agree that's inappropriate. But to do it after I raised the $300,000 and have thousands of people across Canada supporting me, I was surprised. Even during this entire 2-week investigation that was going on, I was muzzled. I wasn't able to talk about the investigation after O'Toole's campaign filed the complaint, so they muzzled me. I never thought that they would go to the step of removing me from the race after I had raised the $300,000, 3,000 signatures, and I was the third candidate out of the 7 or 8 that were in the race back then to get to $300,000. So it's surprising, but the message is clear. Like, you know, you can run as a conservative candidate, you can talk about policies, as long as you don't try to win, it's allowed. You know, if you want to try to finish last, maybe we'll put up with you, but don't try to win. You know, we can't handle that in the Conservative Party of Canada these days. At least the establishment red Tories really don't like that.
You know, I mean, I first really heard of you. I mean, I'm an Alberta boy originally, so I'm fairly new to the Ontario PC Party. And I know that you had similar battles with them and their palace guard around their former leader, Patrick Brown. And by the way, his Svengali, Waleed Solomon, is now the campaign chairman of Erin O'Toole, and he is the person that was the subject of your criticism in that email. I saw that email, and you criticized Waleed Solomon for supporting Sharia finance. I think that's a perfectly legit criticism. It's in the public domain. You cited other points of view. I mean, whether or not that's important for Conservative Party voters is up to them. It just seemed there were so many layers here. The fact that there's certain things you're not allowed to talk about, or certain people you're not allowed to criticize, even inappropriately. I mean, if you're being inappropriate, that's for voters to judge. It just is so odd. But the thing that strikes me, and I was just saying this to our producer before I came in the room here, is I've seen this movie before. You fought this same fight with the Ontario PCs. They took you to court and they lost. It looks like the federal Conservatives won another piece of that action, and I don't understand why.
That's a good question. I mean, Patrick Brown is supporting Peter MacKay. He's on his team. Waleed Solomon's on Erin's team. And, you know, Ezra, you were one of the first to have me for an interview in 2017 when Waleed and Patrick Brown thought it was a good idea to sue me to shut down the Axe the Carbon Tax campaign and another campaign on vote rigging. They thought that was a really good political move for the party and for conservatism in Ontario. And they thought I'd roll over in court and walk away from the party forever. We fought back and we won when a judge threw it out as an anti-SLAPP. SLAPP being, it was strategic litigation against public participation. It was designed to shut me up. And so when I'm running for leader and I see Patrick Brown on Peter MacKay's team and Waleed Solomon, campaign chair for Erin O'Toole, who was the campaign chair for Patrick Brown, I point out the fact that this is the way these guys think that conservative parties should be run. So if a member speaks out or campaigns against a certain idea, they think that they're entitled to bring hellfire and brimstone on them and the wrath of the party apparatus. And I talk about that. And I also talk about, when you're in a leadership race, you talk about the views of the candidates and their high-profile people running their campaigns. Yeah. So
here's the thing: you're talking about Erin O'Toole and his chairman Waleed Solomon, and Waleed Solomon's a bit litigious. I know he's been slapping people with lawsuits.
Thank you, Ezra. Thank you, Ezra.
Well, I mean, he is, and that's, you know.
Well, I get called that by the mainstream media, and they don't like to talk about the fact that Waleed loves to threaten lawsuits on whoever says
he's a
anything.
Lawyer. It's his stock in trade. I mean, we have lawsuits here too. It's sometimes something that's necessary. But if you're in a political campaign, I mean, here's what gets me. If Waleed really has a defamation case against you, he should sue you in defamation. But since he's part of a campaign team, maybe he should grow a thicker skin, because if you're going to sue everyone who attacks you in politics, that's all you'll be doing. And when Justin Trudeau or the CBC or anyone else, or the Globe and Mail editorial board says something really, really mean and unfair about you in a campaign, you got to push on and you got to come up with a witty comeback, or you've got to ignore it, or you've got to come up with a campaign ad that makes people sympathetic to you. The idea that you can shut down criticism when you've entered the big arena, when you said, I want to be the gladiator that'll defeat them all, I want to beat Justin Trudeau, I got the stuff, and then someone writes an email about you and you go crying to mummy, that's very weird to me. But fine, you can write that off as a character flaw or a miscalculation by Solomon or Erin O'Toole. And that's fine, I don't care. But for the party itself to say, we agree we must disqualify a candidate over this quarrel and then fight him in court. That's what's crazy. Like, if Aaron O'Toole and Waleed Solomon want to sue and complain and whine their way through this, maybe it'll work. I don't know. It seems a little thin-skinned, and it seems like they're hunting rabbit tracks instead of going after big game. Frankly, they should be attacking Justin Trudeau. They've made their choice, but the party has chosen to quarrel, to take their side in the quarrel, and to take it to public court and make a public spectacle and burn up party money on this. Who the heck is running that place? Is this Andrew Scheer's doing, or is this someone else?
Well, I have no idea what the current leader's involvement is in the race. I'm sure he'll probably tell you he's not involved at all. But by my count, it's about 11 individuals on the LEOC and the CRO who are somewhat...
LEOC, what's that, leadership?
Yeah, sorry. So National Council is the elected board of our party, and it appointed 20 people, I believe, on a leadership election organizing committee to run this race. And it was chaired by Lisa Raitt and Dan Nolan. Lisa Raitt, obviously, people know her. She was an MP. She was front and center with Peter MacKay for Andrew's entire campaign. She was put in charge of this as a co-chair of the campaign. And then they named a chief returning officer to run the election. Individual who's been a government staffer before when the Conservative Party was in power, Derek Vanstone. And they're in charge of running the rules. But I guess they've decided in their grand wisdom that enforcing the rules is telling candidates what they are allowed to talk about, even if the statement I made. So here's the key point, Ezra. They try to make me sound like the maverick or the renegade. But every position I take is 100% on side with party policy.
Well,
right
that's actually not the key point, Jim, because you have the right to be wacky. You have the right to be wrong. I mean, Michael Chong, who ran in the last leadership, loved the carbon tax, was really weird on a lot of issues, including electoral reform. Frankly, he's a liberal. But okay, you want to run in the Conservative Party? That's sort of neat, I guess. Proves it's a big tent, brings some more people, brings some excitement. I mean, Michael Chong is not a conservative in my books, but who am I to tell him he can't run? Let the people choose. I sort of like the fact that he ran, even though I'm glad he didn't win. And the key point, Jim, is not that you were on party policy. The key point is, even if you weren't, why on earth would you disqualify someone for coloring outside the lines? It's such a small pool of candidates to begin with. I think is there only 3 other candidates who have qualified, if I'm not mistaken, Leslyn Lewis and Aaron O'Toole and Peter MacKay. Is that it?
And Derek Sloan.
And Derek Sloan, thank you. So it's a very small pool. Why on earth would you winnow it down? And if you're so bloody sure that Jim Karahalios is unacceptable, then why are you not sure enough to let the party members make that choice? I don't get this, and I think I'm repeating myself, and I'm talking more than you too, which shows how mad I am about this. Let me get to some facts. I see that because the attempt of the party to throw your lawsuit out failed, this matter will actually be proceeding to trial on May 15th. Is that accurate?
That's right. So they brought in a motion to do a couple things. One of them was just to strike it right out of court, and it failed. So the judge came back and set a date, May 15th. And it's an expedited process with full powers for the judge to go through all of the fact-finding things that he will deem necessary to figure out if I broke the rules, did they follow their own rules, and was my disqualification valid? And then the second point I think we talked about before, Ezra, is not only did they disqualify me, they wanted to hold on to over $300,000 in donations. So I raised $330,000 in donations in a few weeks. $200,000 of that was a buy-in. $100,000 was supposed to be a deposit, and then everything over $300,000 was supposed to come back to my campaign to pay expenses. party staff specifically told me, you can use that deposit, that $100,000 later on when we send it back to you, to pay for outstanding expenses. So they cut me off from raising money a few days before the 25th, and they've held on to the $330,000. And according to the law, I have no ability to pay for those debts because I can't pay for it out of my own pocket or get one donor or a few donors to pay for it, because we have caps on contributions. Every dollar you spend in the campaign has to come from individual contributions. So they really leveled like the full weight of their authority here. I'm losing the word here, Ezra, but you could fill it in for me.
They're going to get smacked so hard by this judge. That's the crazy thing. I mean, the courts, because of the virus, have basically shut down.
Right.
So many trials have been canceled or delayed. It's only emergency matters, serious crimes. In fact, some prisoners are even being let out of prison. That's how skeleton crew our courts are. So the fact that a judge thinks this is so important and urgent that he is scheduling your trial date a month from now, that's quite remarkable to me. It shows the gravity that the court is putting on this and the urgency. The fact that the party lost round one against you tells me I wouldn't be betting on their side right now. I mean, the first glance, I know it was only should your case be thrown out. I wouldn't bet on the party right now. But here's what I know for an ironclad fact. Your trial will be covered breathlessly by every conservative hater, by the CBC, by the Toronto Star, and they'll be cheering for the party, they'll be cheering for you, they'll be cheering for this internal civil war. This is the greatest delight that the CBC will have. Tories in chaos, civil war in the Conservative Party, party blood spills out into the courts. What political party would voluntarily sign up for that humiliation? And by the way, I think they're going to lose. But imagine saying, hey, let's take $250,000, spend it on lawyers, and fight a guy who has a history of winning just because we didn't like some email he said about one of our political buddies. This is madness, and May 15th is going to be a terrible day because I like you, I'm sympathetic to you, I think you're going to win and I want you to win, but imagine the damage this is doing to the Conservative. If you can't govern yourself, if you can't govern your own party, you can't govern your own house, no one's going to trust you to govern the whole country.
Well, we've had this, for a few years now in Conservative politics, in Ontario specifically. We've had this kind of discourse or this chatter amongst the establishment. Oh, it's all inside baseball. It's okay if a nomination gets rigged. It's inside baseball. It's okay if we come down heavy-handed on the policy process at convention. It's okay if there's questions on policy or Democratic votes or if we silence people. And this is what happens after a few years of dismissing all of the process things and clamping down on free speech as inside baseball. This is what happens. And I was put in a position because Aaron O'Toole claims to be a tough guy. Aaron O'Toole claims to be, he's going to hold Justin Trudeau to account. And these are some kind of grandmasters on the McKay and the O'Toole campaign that know how to beat Justin Trudeau. And I send one email and they take it and they broadcast it all over Twitter. They tell the media all about it. They file a complaint to the party. A handful of people on the party side decide, oh, yeah, we're going to make a big stink out of this. And we're going to force Karahalios to go to court to get on the ballot and get the money that he needs. It's no wonder why we lose to the Liberals. It's no wonder. Why we lose.
You're not the first. Of course, the party kicked out that Quebec MP, and I wasn't very familiar with him, DeCarry.
Not an MP, but candidate. Yeah.
Sorry, thank you. He was a candidate. He expressed some views on, I think it was on gay marriage, that are considered too old-fashioned and too conservative now. And maybe that's right. And maybe that's not what the party wants. But for them to say, oh, we're going to disqualify you because some internal group of 11 people on some alphabet soup committee, I mean, I tell you, if I wasn't so desperate to get rid of Justin Trudeau, I would say the Conservative Party deserves to lose the next election. They're certainly auditioning to to be the opposition, not the governing party. Jim, keep us posted. Let us know how it goes on May 15th. I don't know what the courts will be like then, but we'll probably send someone if it's an open courtroom. If it's televised in some way on Skype or something, we'll tune in that way.
Okay, well, thanks for having me, Ezra, and we'll see how it all unfolds, unfortunately.
Yeah, this is just so crazy. If I was the Conservative Party, I would just say, let's get out of this May 15th event. Let's reinstate Jim, and let's, if he's so bad, if he's so odious, let the members trounce him in the vote and prove not only that he's wrong, but the party doesn't like him. I mean, why wouldn't you do that? Instead, they're going to shovel a whole...
I'd rather be campaigning, and I'd rather be talking about the issues facing Canadians today with COVID and the way we're handling it and the economy on the decline. That's what I'd rather be focusing on. But they want our party to be focusing on, rules and who's allowed to disqualify someone and the heavy hand of whatever individuals think that they are in charge to pick the next leader and the course of the party. And Lisa Raitt, she got 3% in the last leadership. Aaron O'Toole got about 10. And they think that the 13% get to govern the other 80+% of the party, 87% of the party. So it's upside down. And for the sake of democracy and for conservatism in this country, I hope it goes the right way. And I owe it to the thousands of people. And I want to say, Ezra, because a lot of your viewers support me, I want to say thank you to everyone that supported me to raise that $330,000 in a few short weeks. They counted me out. They said there was no way. We'll let this guy run. There's no way he's going to raise the money. O'Toole's team went crazy on Twitter. He's not going to raise it. And thanks to a lot of your viewers, we did it. And they were shocked. But thank you. And thanks, Ezra, for covering this, because the mainstream media will cover it upside down and not get the facts straight. So thanks, Ezra.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome. I think they're going to cover your May 15th event just because they like covering a car crash. And that's what's going to happen that day. All right, Jim, well, keep us posted. We'll see you on the 15th of May. Hopefully the party will splash some cold water in his face and get out of this suicide run. If they win or you win, it's bad news for the party. This is really, really dumb. It reminds me of the Labour Party in the UK and how they've been feasting on themselves to the delight of the Conservatives for 2 years. Incredible. Take care, Jim. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Ezra.
All right, there you have it, Jim Karahalios. I find this so irritating and so perplexing, and forgive me for talking more than I listen, but this is the wrong path. That's an excerpt from my daily show, The Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.